Montana voters.
185 is a massive new tax increase that deceptively claims to fund Medicaid expansion.
Our MTN MSU poll shows more people in favor of raising tobacco taxes to continue funding Medicaid expansion than against, but just barely. It's a toss-up with 41.4% in favor of I-185 and 40.8% against. 17.3% don't know, and what they decide will make the difference.
You have to realize most people, if you don't know, either you're not going to vote at all or you're going to vote the default position, which is no, right? You don't want to change the law. So this tight race for 185 is probably to benefit for the opponents of 185 rather than the proponents of 185.
The other initiative, 186, which would require permits for new hard rock mines in the state to be denied unless strict environmental requirements are met, appears to have a better chance of passing. 50.6% support the initiative, 28.6% oppose it, but there's still the unknown of those who don't know, 19.8%, and that could make it much closer than it appears.
It sounds like a good issue. Like, we want to hold mines accountable. We want to have clean water. So I think this one has a better chance of passing, but it's ultra tight. I actually think when you take the don't knows into account, this is probably too close to call.
So those don't knows, the people who have not yet made up their minds, could very well decide what happens with these two initiatives on Election Day when they do finally make up their minds.
We also take a look at that 6-year levy. Almost 54% of voters polled say they support it. That's the one that the university systems, of course, want to know about. Only 22% were against that, about the same number that said they were undecided. The poll has a margin of error of plus or minus 2.5%.
The Republican National Committee is apologizing for a Montana absentee ballot mailer that was sent out last week.
It contained incorrect election information. In a statement to KPAX today, RNC spokesperson Mickey Carver said, quote, "We regret the unintentional error we made in a recent mailing. We're contacting all voters who received the mailing through live phone calls starting today and sending out new mailers to each voter, providing some clarification." The mailer incorrectly states that absentee ballots could be postmarked and still counted if received after Election Day. Of course, in Montana, all ballots have to be received by 8 p.m. on election night, and any ballot received after that deadline is not counted. The Montana Commissioner of Political Practice's office has spoken with the RNC about the mailer and said they appreciate the steps being taken to correct such errors. Officials are reminding people to mail their ballot at least a week before Election Day.
Missoula City Fire investigating the cause of a mobile home fire that destroyed a large portion of a woman's home early this morning. In the meantime, Mary Palmer trying to figure out what to do next. She lost one of her cats in the fire, but she was able to escape herself unharmed. Today, her wet and burned belongings sat in piles outside her home. She tells us she was about to go to bed around 1 o'clock this morning at her home on Sherwood Street when neighbors pounded on her door to tell her the shed next to her trailer was on fire. It didn't take long for the flames to spread to her home. She says she tried to get water, but it wasn't enough. By the time the fire department got there, the shed was fully engulfed. The fire was burning into her home. She believes somebody started some cardboard on fire next to her shed to keep warm when the flames spread.
I have nothing now. Nope. This is my own, my only house that I thought I would ever have to buy. I just don't get it that we can do this to somebody, you know?
Mary tells us the hardest part was losing her cat in the fire, but firefighters did save 3 kittens. They're being cared for at Animals. The fire department estimates damage around $10,000. They were on the scene until early this morning, and they again are continuing to investigate just how this fire started.
With the 10th anniversary of the formal creation of the Pacific Northwest Trail months away, we're expecting to see more attention on this still developing 1,200-mile hike between Glacier National Park and the Olympic Coast. Some of that attention is on the intensifying debate over rerouting the trail to protect grizzlies in northwest Montana, and as I found out on special assignment, helping hikers at the same time. The PNT isn't a new idea, first proposed during the long-distance backpacking boom of the 1970s. Stretching from the Continental Divide peaks of Glacier National Park, the route crosses multiple ranges, including the Cascades and Olympics, before terminating at Cape Alava in Olympic National Park. The route is stitched together from existing trails and Forest Service roads and requires frequent bushwhacking. But the PNT's route west of Lake Koocanusa is in dispute. Members of the Yak Forestry Council want to see it rerouted to the south, following the Fisher River, instead of hugging the border through grizzly country and the Yak to prevent conflicts.
The Yak is very low elevation. very limited in alpine habitat that grizzlies use late in the summer when hikers are using them. Maybe 3% of the valley is that upper alpine above tree line, and it's just not a good idea to be putting hikers in those last, I think, 3 to 4 breeding age females with young up there now. That's all we've got. And you get down to that number, you just can't afford to lose one.
Bass and his supporters say it's an issue of safety for bear and backpacker alike.
Right, and no hiker intends or thinks that he or she is going to disrupt a grizzly, or that he or she is going to have a negative influence on a grizzly, or vice versa. You don't go thinking that. But again, we're so close to the edge with the yak grizzlies, so few, it's just not worth the risk.
Not everyone feels that way. The Pacific Northwest Trail Association defends the original route. The Forest Service says it could cost millions to move. Even biologists question the true impact on grizzlies, with a few dozen hikers tackling the route annually. But some locals feel access to services for long-distance hikers tips the scales in favor of the southern alternative. Backers of the alternative trail route say it would give hikers the option of getting off the trail to resupply in places like Libby and here in Troy, helping the local economy.
Well, the fact that people are able to get off the trail, come in, and be able to get supplies. I mean, I think that's good for any town, and it's good for the people on the trails.
What we see happening normally with tourism traffic going through Troy is they go through Troy very quickly and head on to Glacier Park, and it would be nice for people to be able to come through in a slower way and interact more with locals and see in a little more detail the beauty we have right around here.
Beauty and business. Goodman's Sporting Goods store has plenty of bear spray, firearms, and the equipment that frequently fails on long hikes. And again, the issue of safety.
Where the trail was going through, it's not many hop-off spots to where they can go and get supplies, and that could be, it can be dangerous if somebody has an injury and they need to come in and get somebody quickly.
Advocates of the Southern Alternative believe the reroute would also give hikers many more options, including access into the scenic Cabinet Mountains wilderness, providing the diversity through hikers are looking for.
Absolutely. Yeah, you imagine these guys are going to 1,300 miles. They're going to be starting in Glacier. They're going to end at the Pacific Coast. The Kootenai Valley is something they will remember and most likely will bring them back. It's that different taste than what everything else has to offer.
Change won't be easy. Beyond the debate, Congress must be ultimately convinced.
It has to be an act of Congress, unfortunately. It's not a Forest Service decision. It's not anybody's amendment or decision. It was an act of Congress that gave us this problem, and it's going to take an act of Congress to correct it. And fortunately, we can correct it.
Now, this is not going to be easy to resolve, and Bass even admits, he says, you got to take this act of Congress. So they're keeping in touch with Montana's congressional delegation about this option of changing the route, but it's going to be an uphill fight to try to get this.
I wasn't aware it even existed, and now I'm very intrigued about that.
It gets maybe 60, 70 hikers a year,
yeah.
So nowhere near what we see on the Continental Divide Trail or the Pacific Crest Trail.
Right, okay. Thanks, Dennis. Yeah. All right.